Well, doing another application of RGS and aerate here. And I actually have a reminder on my phone that tells me when it's time to do this, because otherwise I would probably forget. So we are just spoon feeding this baby a little bit from our orthodilin spray sprayer. And you know what? The one thing that I will say is that this thing has been kind of finicky and has been giving me problems. So Christmas may include a new one of these, but got the old girl set at about an ounce on my setting there. Do this once a month. And I'm pretty excited about what I've seen. I've got humic, fulvic acid, and sea kelp extract in the RGS. And the aerate is just a super concentrated, basically soap, which is kind of cool. So I've got those two mixed up, ready to go. The most enjoyable thing that I find so far has just been the difference in the soil change, which I get this is all a soil first approach, but the way that water and air move through the soil has been totally different than anything that I've experienced in the past. Like the ground is physically softer every time when I walk on it, and obviously it's been super hot, so I don't think we've seen a ton of development from the plant side, but plants seem healthier whenever they're getting water. They're still growing during the summer. Like during this period before, stuff would just die back. And in a lot of areas I've actually seen it thrive, if that is how you want to describe it, since it's pretty rough right now. But I'm excited. I think during the fall, during the cool season, so there's going to be 2 cool seasons coming up. There's going to be fall, there's going to be spring. And I think during that time, what we'll see is continued development of the root system, the root mass, which haven't had up to this point. And that's kind of what determines whether or not the grass can actually make it through the summer and whether or not it can thrive in this heat. But I think we'll see that, because I'm already seeing evidence of it. And that's the one thing that I wondered about this, is like, how quickly am I going to see evidence of what we're putting in the ground and see it already. So I need to really replace this hose because it's on its last legs. There are a couple different spots where it's a little weak. The other thing that I really struggle with this hose end sprayer is I can't get it to push product quite like it's supposed to. And it's pretty simple. It's just got a couple holes that, I wish I knew the physics term with how it draws up product into the water stream. It's the same concept if you were to put a straw in a glass of water and blow over the top of the straw. What would happen is it would draw up water out of the glass. Same concept, same way that a carburetor works on a car. Except for mine, for some reason, doesn't work that well. They haven't quite figured out what the issue is yet. As you can tell, the color of the water when we're actually getting the product up at the rate that I'm supposed to be getting it at. It makes it kind of hard to regulate how we spray things and how things work. Now the bright side is that as I'm doing this with the holes that I have in the hose, the rest of the lawn gets a little bit of a drink. You might be looking at the lawn in the background and wondering why it looks so white. That is because I put an application down of tenacity about 2 weeks ago. No, it was a week on Friday. So I put an application of tenacity down last week on Friday, and it has really been doing a wonderful job on the crabgrass that I've got in the lawn. See, now this stuff is working. I'm running it at 2 ounces, so I'm walking really, really fast. Boy, it's working well. Up, and then there, back off. Just what I said. May almost be out of product at running at 2 ounces like that. The other thing that I've really considered is some of these areas where got some trouble or like heat zones is whether or not I should just take these and paint these black with humic, or whether or not my issue is that they're a heat zone, and when I get my grass down here from Pete from GCI Turf, if maybe it's part of it is a cultivar issue. And there's my first kink of the day. I don't know. So I'm gonna spray some more of this. That hose end sprayer is frustrating. I tore it all apart the other day, took a look at it, and still, I don't know what the issue is. I can see the difference between their lawn and my lawn. And there's two different things. Number one, the slope down here, that's part of the issue, because all of the water that hits their lawn runs down and runs right into mine, because then it runs out this channel. Okay, it runs all the way out this channel and it runs all the way out to the street, which is fine, but my lawn looks phenomenal. And then you've got this in the neighbor's lawn, which isn't bad. It's pretty leggy. He's left that all summer. And then you come over here and this is what my lawn looks like. Maybe you can see the difference with the camera. I feel like if I don't move it too much, you can see it. But again, neighbor's lawn. These are just a couple feet apart. My lawn. Can you tell a difference? The only spots where I really have big issues are heat zone number one. Okay, and that's, again, you've got concrete all on this side, concrete all on that side. Thank God this is a little bit in the shade during the summer, but for the most part, that gets baked to death. But the other thing I wonder though too is I've got this area right here, it's got the same issue. Looks pretty good to me. Honestly, one of the things I think about, since I've got two zones, and this is definitely a first world problem, maybe 2 hose end sprayers. Does that make me lazy? Probably. But at least that way then I could just pop it on, make my application, be done with it. Instead of having to drag one from the front all the way to the back, you know, and so on and so on. But I would say, like, if you take a look at the actual turf here, this right here is pretty healthy, you know? And you've got a mixture of some broader leaf stuff in there, but for the most part, I mean, if you take a look at like this plant, I mean, that is a healthy, mature piece of tall fescue, you know? Doesn't look like there's a ton of roots on that one there. Maybe that's a bad example, but this all just looks far healthier than it has in years past at this time. I'm not gonna say it looks as healthy as it does typically in the late fall to late spring, because that's a totally different time of year when it's had optimal growing conditions. And that's the things That's the thing that interests me the most about Pete. That's the thing that interests me the most about what Pete at GCI Turf has, is that guy's like 2 hours away, which means he gets the same weather, he gets the same amount of rain, same soil. So I think it's a combination of the type of grass that he's using, the tall turf type fescue cultivar that he's using, and then on top of that, his cultural practices, like how often, for example, how often he's mowing things and what he's doing with his yard. So pretty excited about it. Getting to the point where I almost just want to quit measuring this out precisely and just throw it down, as Alan Haynes said. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen here? My grass is going to get a little bit extra RGS. It's going to get a little bit extra aerate in the soil, maybe. But I'm pretty sure, based on what I know now, it's probably not a bad thing. One of the recommendations that John has made in a couple different situations is, I'm pretty sure it's John Perry. A couple different recommendations that he's made in some situations is to go and just paint an area completely black with humic. Well, I'm not worried about overdoing it with humic if he's recommending putting down 12 ounces in a tiny little area. Great question that I'm probably, I don't know how many people are actually watching this, but a great question if you get back here and you look at this and you're watching this. Why does this look so terrible? Last year, in an effort to kind of level out this area, because this is a low spot, this is a spot where I get a lot of water that stands, I put in some compost. And the compost that I got when I tried to grow things in it did absolutely nothing. So yay for me for picking some terrible compost. On top of that, what's interesting is that the plants that are here, that have no shade and are kind of out on their own, are crushing it. I mean, look at these guys. I mean, from a tall turf type fescue, like those look super mature. They've got pretty robust leaves and they're doing great. So I really am anticipating when I go and I overseed all of this, and I'm going to come in here and put in some more topsoil because that's still a low area. I think that's just going to go like crazy and be a really nice area. And that's really the biggest issue with most of the backyard, is that last year I put in a heavy application of probably almost an inch or 2 inches of compost in the backyard, and I knowingly put it in a way that really challenged the grass. And so that's 90% of the reason why this looks so rough. That, and I didn't give it a ton of water earlier in the year. Now these areas over here where you can see where there are some brown spots, that is where I got a ton of traffic when we built the pergola back here, and I'm pretty sure that's what killed it off. But you can see that there's clumps starting to come back, and the clumps of tall turf type fescue, or clumps of fescue that are here, are incredibly healthy. Now I just sprayed this, which is a crabgrass variety. It's a tropical grass variety. I just sprayed that 2 days ago, and that will start to die out. I did not put down an application of pre-emergent. Kicking myself for that, because I basically have a bed of what I don't want over here. So let's get spraying some stuff. I bet it would surprise you to know that my favorite part of the backyard is this part up on the hill over here, and I really am hoping that I can get that going. My thought has always been that that area has struggled because it doesn't get enough sun, but there's a lot of other areas back here that don't get enough sun that look a lot better than that area. And also I've noticed this year, with some of the root development and the improvements that I've gotten in this area, it actually looks so much better than it has in years past. And so when we get a little bit later in the year, and it's not going to be nearly as shaded back here because I'm going to get a lot more sun out of the south sky, I'm interested to see like if this will get a little bit more dense and if we'll continue to get a little bit better. This area up here is just obviously almost all, this area is almost all crabgrass right now, so it's kind of a weird area. That's probably the area I hate the most in the backyard, just because it gets a bunch of sun and then it's just super trashy up there, and I don't understand why. I know it's more than likely because there's a lot of bedrock right there, and I wonder if when they weren't excavating the site, if at that point they just kind of hit a bunch of soil that wasn't suitable for growing anything, and there hasn't been any work on the actual soil since anybody moved in here, and that means that then I've got soil that just won't grow grass. Now this area back in here, over here, is all Bermuda, and that's just drives me nuts. If you know anything about Bermuda, it's always where you don't want it. So that drives me a bit crazy about this here. This hose end sprayer also drives me crazy right now because I can't get super consistent applications of what I'm trying to do. I will say this though, it is incredible to me with this little application of aerate that we do, do you get any tangible results? Works super, super well, whatever's in it. Well, I know, it's a soap which breaks the tension of the different particles within the soil, which allows room for air and moisture to penetrate, which encourages root growth. I get it, like it all goes together. It totally makes sense to me. The humics make sense to me. I've still got so much product in here. There we go. I want to make sure that I get a lot of this broadcast here. I think this area, strong candidate for getting a lot of Roundup here in about 2 weeks. I think September 15th looks like that's going to be my optimal date for actually putting down seed and a little bit of soil. I want to do some leveling back here in this corner. Not leveling because I want a real mow or anything like that, but leveling because this corner back here, all the water runs down over there into this corner and out. And it's tough to mow because it's at a pretty steep angle. So I don't know, maybe we'll see. It's on the list. What would it cost me in Roundup to spray that thing down? I've already got all the seeds, so it's not like I'm doing anything that I wouldn't already be doing. I just wouldn't have a stand of fescue already standing there. There we go. Get some of this out. Let's go. one of my favorite products of all time, not that I'm endorsing the product because I'm getting paid, obviously not, is this Cutter product, backyard bug control. I deal with mosquitoes pretty regularly back here, but when I've actually sprayed this stuff down, it does a pretty good job of eliminating things. And part of the reason is that mosquitoes, if you're being bit by a mosquito, that mosquito was probably germinated within, 10, 15 yards of where you currently are. So if you control the mosquitoes and the bugs in your backyard, which I actually have a gnat that's flying around me right now, if you do it, I think I do about 2 applications a year. It's incredible. And this is such a wonderful outdoor space that for me not to have access to that and have friends who want to come out here and be a part of that would be a huge discouragement. So lasts up to 12 weeks. We're in that area again. I put this down early in the year. I'm going to spray some down again. I'm starting to see it's been a lot more moisture. Starting to see mosquitoes coming up out of the grass, germinating. We had some water in some what do you call them? Like a vase for flowers. Definitely could see mosquito larvae in that. So I'm gonna spray a bunch of this now and follow things up. So. That pretty much does it for what I'm going to do this morning. I'm going to come back later this afternoon and put down an application of microgreen and humic 12. But in between that, I'm going to try to water this in a little bit, get it to drop down into the soil, and hopefully get to the plant. But before I go, I just want to give you a couple shots of the lawn here just to check this out. This is an area where things are doing pretty well. Not typical for this time of year. Typically this area in the backyard has been almost completely died back to the individual bases for each plant. And what I do see, I don't know if you can see this, but even down here, I can see new growth on all of these different plants, and it looks like it's doing well. Even if you get in here, that's all new growth. That's stuff that's coming out, and it's not because these are ideal situations for this grass to grow. It's actually the opposite of that, and I think I'm trying to see if I can't find anything in this area that would be a brand new shoot. That's pretty close right there. But even this area that was super rough just a couple of weeks ago is beginning to fill in. And I think the longer we continue to keep getting this a little bit of moisture and continuing to feed the grass what it actually needs, I think this fall the biggest problem will just be keeping up with cutting it at a height where I'm not going to be out here every day trying to mow things down. Ultimately what I'm hoping to see are clumps of fescue that look like this, because fescue, as it gets large, it fills in these aggregate areas in between it and branches out over the top. But I can just see new growth, new shoots everywhere coming out of this stuff. And I'm pretty excited about that because I did a number on this backyard area, and you can see that there's a lot of material left over from that compost that I put in here. And the compost, this compost that I actually used in the garden, nothing will grow in it. So, silly me. But lesson learned, right? I think right as I put out the compost, John Perry had a talk where he said, why would you want to put an anaerobic product out into a lawn that's an aerobic process? I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you it probably is going to stunt the growth of your lawn. So I would just recommend either going with something that is like a soil amendment. Like if you are going to top dress, put something down. If you think that for example, like my soil back here, my CECs were way lower than they should have been, okay, for the type of soil that we have. And my thought was, I'll add compost, and that'll add, you know, carbon or organic material into the soil, which it will long term, but it's still got to break down. And so unless you really want to wait for that material, organic material, to break down in your soil over the next 4 to 5 years, the difference is when we're using the N-ext products is that we're getting an infusion of carbon into that layer that the plant has accessible almost immediately. It increases your CECs, and I get it, like I'm probably feeding it a lot over time, but it's not using up everything that I'm putting into the soil every single day. And I can see that. I can see that just in the health of the backyard right now. It probably looks so much better on camera than it actually does in person. In fact, I know that because I've looked at it a couple times. Like, this hill actually looks beautiful. And I always was super concerned about this thing not getting enough sun. Well, come to find out, if it's got the proper food, it actually does really, really, really well. Food and water. Food for thought.